So welcome students. This is the overview of the course lecture. This will be the preparatory lecture. Hopefully you have your syllabus printed out and near you so we can walk through it. The syllabus is really your contract for the course, so it's important to spend a few minutes understanding what's expected of you. After this, listening to this lecture, you should go ahead and take the About the Course quiz, which is in the Week 1 learning module. So here we have some basic information on the syllabus. My name is Dr. Heilbrenner. I'm in Mercy Hall at the Dobbs Ferry campus, room 28A. My office hours are flexible, but I'll be happy to meet with you or call or discuss anything with you by phone or Skype or FaceTime. There's my phone number if you want to get a hold of me, but the best way to reach me is really through email. I respond pretty quickly. My email is nheilbrenner@mercy.edu. Here we have the course description as well as the School of Education mission statement. I want to spend just a minute talking about academic integrity, something that we talk about as plagiarism. Most of the assignments in this course are put through something called Safe Assign, and that automatically checks your paper against thousands of papers out there that have been submitted through college portals. It also checks it against internet sources. It's very good at finding plagiarism. So the penalty for plagiarism is quite severe. So I hope that you will not do that. Sometimes the hardest thing to watch is a student who inadvertently plagiarized something. So what do I mean by that? I mean, maybe you used something on the internet a few years ago in your classroom and you want to reuse it and you forgot that you took it from the internet, and all of a sudden the paper Safe Assign finds your paper and there's a big match, and then I have to communicate with you and then you have to redo the paper, or you possibly even risk getting an F on it. So all the work in this course is supposed to be original. So what that means is you can't reuse rubrics that you've been using in your classroom. And just to be safe, you really should do it from scratch. The other thing I want to talk about plagiarism is there's such a thing as self-plagiarism. And what this means is you can't duplicate portions of papers that you've turned in for other classes. I've received papers through the years that where students have written half the paper for another course. And that's considered double dipping. It will find that. I will have to have a conversation with you about how that's inappropriate. You will have to rewrite it. So don't be tempted to go back and use the same language that you're using in papers for other classes this semester. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we touch on the fieldwork. If you have a disability, then you need to register it with the Office of Accessibility. The contact information is here. And then let me know. They give you a form to send to professors. So for example, if you get time and a half on assignments or whatever it is. Counseling service contact information is here as well. This is a completely online class, and I know that we have varying levels of experience with online classes. So what I want to tell you is that two pieces of advice, especially for those of you who are new to online learning: don't put things off until the very last minute. Let's say an assignment is due at midnight and you are rushing against the clock and it's 11:55 and you're ready to submit, and all of a sudden you hit the submit button and Blackboard crashes. Well, you don't have a lot of recovery time, so try to build some recovery time into your online learning experience. The second thing is, if you do encounter difficulties, the appropriate thing to do is, if you need support with Blackboard, email mercyonline@mercy.edu. Or if you're having login or browser related trouble, so something about your computer's not quite lighting up with the course, you can call that number there, 674-7526, or email the help desk. And there's a whole page link here for you to find out more about that. It's not something that I can particularly help you with, but this is the way that Mercy has set up to deal with technical issues. Now let's talk for a minute about field experiences. Most of your classes in the ed school have you going out into the field, into schools for observations or interviews or even to work with students. The state requires 10 fieldwork hours per course. Now we have roughly taken that to mean it's 10 hours total, so you won't be asked to observe 10 hours necessarily in each classroom, but 10 hours total counting the observation time, the planning time for your paper, the writing time, the submission time. There is a fieldwork assignment in this course. You are not allowed to double dip on hours. So what that means is you can't do one observation for 3 classes and just write it up differently. If I find that you do that, you're either going to fail or you're going to have to redo the observation. And it may be too late in the course to go out and observe another 6 to 8 hours or whatever that you would need to do. So make plans to have a separate and unique observation for this course. As well, you shouldn't self-plagiarize, as I talked about before. So now we get to the meat of the course, which is about course policies. And students always want to know about policies on, for example, makeup work. You should, of course, make every effort to organize yourself so that you turn things in on time. But I do realize that sometimes things come up. And so there is a policy in the course that you can turn most assignments in up to a week late, and there'll be a 10% point penalty taken regardless of the reason. There are a couple of exceptions. The final examination and the extra credit vocabulary project that we'll talk about may not be turned in late due to the fact that they occur very late in the course. After May 10th, however, no late work will be accepted. When you submit papers for the course, you need to submit them in Microsoft Word. PDFs will not be accepted. This is because it's just very difficult to edit a PDF and provide substantive feedback. This is why I wrote you before the semester to make sure that you had a copy of Word. All assignments need to be submitted using the link on the Blackboard course shell that I'll provide. If you email an assignment to me, I will write you back and say you need to submit it to the link. Assignments may be revised, and that's a good thing. I believe that we learn the best when we get feedback and when we change our assignments. And in the past, students have really liked this about the course. So most assignments may be revised. You don't have to ask permission up to a week after it's graded. So let's say you turned in the assignment on a Sunday and I graded it on a Wednesday. You have until the following Wednesday to revise that assignment. After a week, it'll no longer be accepted. There are a couple of exceptions to the revision and that policy, and that is the extra credit vocabulary assignment that we'll talk about and the final examination. Those may not be revised because of when they occur so late in the course. You can see the student learning outcomes here, and these aren't all of them, but I'll let you on your own read through. These are things you should be able to do by the end of the course. The required textbook is Educational Psychology, Theory and Practice, and it's very important that you get the 12th edition because I will be referencing case studies and other things, question sets in the book. So next week, I'm going to ask that you email a photo of you and your textbook so that I can see that you purchased the correct copy. Don't get the previous versions, please. So your grade will be based on 100 points. This is what I call these course points. So we can think of each point as a percentage point. And you will see here how the assignments break out. So for example, learning modules are worth 30% of your grade or 30 course points. There's an assignment called Interview with a Psychologist that we'll talk about. That's worth 20% or 20 course points. Your field work is called Theory to Practice Observation, and that's worth 25% or 25 course points. And finally, you'll be asked to do an online final exam with a case study. That's worth 25% of your grade or 20 course points. That adds up to 100 points, but there is a 2-point optional extra credit assignment, so it's actually possible for you to get 102 in this course. What I do is I total up your points, and you can actually see these totals going up in Blackboard as well as the semester progresses. And then I round according to the nearest tenth of a decimal point, and then you can see your grade. So if you got a 77, you got a C+. Let's talk for a moment about the assignments. I'm going to just briefly describe them here. You'll get much more detail as the course progresses. So I said that 30% of your grade consisted of learning modules. Each week, you'll work through a series of activities. This is the learning module. And usually these modules are worth 2 points per week. So if you times that by 15, that gives you 30 points or 30% of your grade. Activities will vary in the learning module. You might be asked to watch a video, listen to an audio lecture. You might be asked to do a worksheet, or discussion posts are actually many times frequently included in the learning modules. At the end, I give you a grade of up to 2 points. So how do you know what to do? In the learning folder on the course materials link on the Blackboard course shell, you'll see a README file. And this is very specific to just walks you through what to do, step 1, step 2, step 3. And at the end of the README file, there's a checklist for you to make sure that you didn't forget anything. Learning modules are always due on Sunday night at midnight. Usually they're posted well in advance. You might see 2 or 3 learning modules posted up in advance because I know students like to work well in advance. But at any rate, they're due Sunday at midnight, and the due date is clearly marked for all activities. I advise you not to wait until 10 minutes before midnight to submit everything because I'm going to be asleep. I'm not going to be checking my computer, and you're going to be out there on your own if you have problems. So, try to post no later than midday on Sunday, and that gives you a little bit of backup time in case something goes wrong. As I said, discussion board posts are often part of the learning module. When I look at your discussion post, I grade it using this rubric. There'll be a response post that you have to respond to some questions. And this should be a thoughtful and meaningful post. I can usually tell who's read the material and done the work because if you haven't done that, it's very superficial. You're not showing that you have mastered the ideas in the unit. The second post that you'll do is a reaction post. And that's where you're reacting simply to one colleague. The thing to realize about the reaction post is it has to be more extensive than just saying good job. I often see students who post, I like what you said, good job, or some form of that. Well, that won't get you full credit. What you need to do is to extend the conversation. Pretend you're in a classroom and you're talking to the student. So you want to say something meaningful, like ask a question or talk about your own experiences and say, what do you think about that? It's important to extend that conversation. Now, in addition to this, sorry about that, that's my dog barking. In addition to this, there's a close the loop post that you need to do. And these close the loop posts are due on Monday. Now, I said to you that that the module is due on Sunday. But the reality is I'm looking for the close the loop post on Monday because sometimes you don't post until very late Sunday night, and I want to go through and read them Monday morning. And sometimes I'll post a question or comment or reaction to what you posted, and I need you to respond to that by Monday night. So be sure to check back Monday to see if I've responded. That's called the closed loop post. And finally, the professional communication is where I'm looking for, do you have spelling errors? Do you have grammatical errors? Are you respectful of your colleagues and of me? And so that's how I grade your discussion posts. A second assignment is called the interview with a psychologist. This is where you go and do a 30-minute interview with a school psychologist or a school counselor. Do not interview a classroom teacher for this activity because that is not acceptable. You need to be interviewing someone who works in the field of educational psychology, so a psychologist or counselor. So you can do this by phone, by the way, but you should cover the context and a certain number of topics, which are all outlined in the syllabus and in the instructions for the assignment. That's due March 1st, and it's worth 20% of your grade. Another assignment is your fieldwork. We call that the theory to practice observation. It's worth 25% of your grade, and it's due April 26th. It's important to go in and observe in a classroom for 6 hours. Now, some people say, well, I thought there were 10 hours required for fieldwork. Yes, but those 10 hours include time to plan the paper, write the paper, and upload the paper. So you've got to be there for a minimum of 6 hours. This should be in a classroom that matches your area of certification. So if you are an elementary person, you need to be in a K to 6 classroom. If you're an adolescent person, in a 7 to 12 classroom. You may not use the same field work observation for 2 classes. This is a state requirement, so you have to have a separate observation for each class and a separate paper. And I do put these papers through Safe Assign, which checks for duplication. So what should you do right now for this assignment? Well, you can start thinking about where you might do your observation. And you shouldn't go in and observe yet. I would do the observation probably around the end of March, because by then you'll understand more about the kinds of things you'll be looking for. You're going to be going in and looking for ways that teachers use learning and motivational theory in their classroom. And I'm asking you to do certain specific theories, and I'll get into more detail about that as the course progresses. But again, start thinking about and perhaps line up the observation, but don't actually do the observation for at least a couple of months. Another assignment is the final exam. This will be an online exam. It's worth 25% of your grade, and it's due May 10th, and we'll be talking about that later in the course. Your vocabulary project that I mentioned is worth up to 2-point extra credit. You don't have to do it, it's optional, but if you do it, it's due May 3rd. The way this works is each week you'll be given vocabulary to learn. I'll put that on the course site, and it's also embedded in the timetable for the syllabus. It's important vocabulary because 2 reasons. It helps you learn common terminology in the field of education, and it's also used in the EdTPA. The way it works is there's a template in the assignments folder. You download that template and you fill it out each week with you type in the vocabulary term, you give a definition, and you use it in a sentence. Don't turn this in each week. Wait until the end of the course and turn it in by May 3rd. And if it's complete and well done, that's 2 points extra credit on your final grade. Here's the course timetable or course schedule. This is a very important part of the syllabus, and it's one that you'll want to pay attention to. Each week is laid out. So for example, week 1, and the date that the work is due, Sunday, January 26th. The topic is there, listed there. So this week we're doing Getting to Know You in the course, and we're doing some introductions and a course overview. There is no vocabulary this week, or what I call a certification focus. The certification focus is what you need to be able to take away from the lesson that will you'll need to apply towards when you're doing your certification tests, for example, the EdTPA. This week, we're doing weekly module 1, and there is an assignment, another reading called Teacher's Stories, Teacher's Knowledge, which is on the course site. So every week you can look here and see the assignments that are listed that are due and what you need to be able to do, as well as the vocabulary. There's a bibliography section that contains some interesting additional readings if you want. And finally, our Interstate New Teacher Assessment and Support Consortium, we call them ITAC Standards. Just like teachers of K to 12 have standards that we have to teach to children, universities and colleges have professional development standards that we have to use to prepare educators, future educators. And those are the ITAC standards. And you can look and see that the course outcomes are tied into them. So for this week, make sure you've completed all the activities in the README file from week 1. Again, that's under course materials in the week 1 folder. You should refer to the checklist at the bottom of the file to make sure you've done everything. And everything is due Sunday, January 26th. Here's that checklist that I mentioned before. Every week at the bottom of the README file, there's a checklist. Simply work through the checklist to make sure that you've done everything. So for this week, you should have looked at the Welcome Start Here tab, read through all that material, including the Getting Started file attachment. Watch the short welcoming introductory video that I posted your own introductory message and a photo or video of yourself. Open the week 1 folder and the README file that was in the course materials section. Viewed the About the Course lecture, that's what this is, while looking at the syllabus. Taken the About the Course quiz, that's what you'll do next. And finally, read the Teacher's Stories, Teacher's Knowledge, and submitted your own 2 to 3 page teacher narrative. Directions are all on the Blackboard course shell for all of these activities, but this checklist makes a handy little summation that you can use at the end of the week to make sure you've done everything. If you have any questions at all, I'm more than happy to answer them. You can email me through nheilbrunner@mercy.edu or simply through the course message system. So everybody have a great week. I hope you're off to a good start, and I'll talk to you some more in week 2.